if you wanted to do like a short film, like a 10-minute film about a
On
young
him.
man in Haiti who accidentally gets like the power of electricity and like helps his village with the fact that they still don't have power 5 years later, I would have been sobbing. I would have loved it. Hey everybody, we're the Good Doctors of Abbey Research. I'm Dr. Erin.
I'm Dr. Kristen.
And you are so very welcome to our tiny little corner of the internet where we are in the second part of our week looking at voodoo in Haiti for this leg of the Colonizer's World Tour, where we are spending the whole month on the beautiful little half of Hispaniola that makes up the country of Haiti. And we could spend another full month there as we are going through these explorations. As we talked about a little bit last week, we had a harder time than most this month finding pieces of art that necessarily matched the topic we wanted to talk about. And thus is the case for voodoo as well. There is an excellent film by all accounts called Eve's Bayou that is about voodoo, the New Orleans brand. But we did not want to conflate the two any more than we realized we already had been this entire time. So we found a film that was made in Haiti that has some neo-realism in it, which I didn't really know what it was. But I was like, sounds kind of creative, and so we'll go with voodoo. So the film we watched and we'll be talking about today is Ayiti Mon Amour, Haiti My Love. It is free to watch on Tubi. It is from 2016. It's quite a year globally. It was the official selection for the Toronto International Film Festival in 2016, and it was Haiti's first submission for Best Foreign Language Film at the 2018 Oscars. It is also important to note that the director, Getty Feline, is the first Haitian-born female director to film a narrative feature entirely in Haiti. So lots of firsts for Ayiti Mon Amour. Not a first for us is that we didn't care for it. It is in Haitian Creole, French, English, and Japanese.
Still can't figure out why it's in Japanese, but that's okay.
With English subtitles. One of the first spoken words, sentences, phrases, text is in Japanese, and that totally threw me. I'm not gonna lie. It is set in Haiti 5 years after the 2010 earthquake. And I am literally going to just read a little bit from a review because that's the only way I know how to explain it. In Getty Feline's magical neo-realist tale, the three stories of a grieving young boy, an old fisherman, and a muse combine to create a poetic portrait of the island nation Haiti. Feline's film eschews the images that saturated screens after the disaster of the earthquake, while the pain of the destruction remains evident. Feline refuses to tell a tale of victimhood. Instead, she places the island's narrative back in the hands of Haitians whose lives aren't reducible to headlines. As her characters begin to heal, which I didn't understand that that's what was happening, but cool, Feline suggests that the island will too. So, the film asks you to do a lot of work. I watched it before Dr. Kristen. I watched 10 minutes of it and was like, I don't understand what's happening, and found this review. And I was like, okay, at least I have context. And then I told her before she watched it, read this review. But it's one of those films that's just not for us.
I really did appreciate that it had nothing to do with poverty porn.
Yeah.
I appreciated that it was lived experiences of Haitian people.
It felt very lived in. Yeah.
Felt very lived in. I feel like I've been in those places. The story makes no linear or narrative sense to my brain. I was on board with the idea of the muse becoming corporeal. I think that's a creative thing to
that was
demonstrate
cool.
what that is. Until she left him for long periods of time to go shopping, and then I didn't understand what we were saying. And it was a lot of like, okay, I don't know if this is because I'm not Haitian, I can't grab it. I don't know if it's because I'm not into neorealism that I can't grab it, but I can't grab it. And I'm not enjoying myself. And I would not recommend this film. Like, that's what it comes down to.
Yeah. I appreciate that the end goal was about humanizing Haitians.
Great. And that was wonderful. Yep.
Going beyond the news feed of like the aftermath of the earthquake. I think my favorite scene was when the young boy, Orphe, who's speaking Japanese at the start, I don't really understand how, but becomes gifted with the power of electricity. Not in a way that kills him, but in a way that, like, he can transmit electricity. And he ends up giving free electricity to all the people in the village. And, like, they're just queuing up and, like, holding their phone.
I did like that, yeah.
Holding his arm so they can charge their phones because they still don't have electricity.
Yeah, I called him Storm in my notes. I was
Storm.
like, okay, Halle Berry. Like,
and, like, if you wanted to do, like, a short film, like a 10-minute film about a young man in Haiti who accidentally gets the power of electricity and, like, helps his village with the fact that they still don't have power 5 years later, I would have been sobbing. I would have loved it. So, like, that tiny little story in and of itself, I loved. And, like, another review I found that is helpful for me to understand, doesn't change my opinion on it, but was that Feline was not, according to this reviewer, not telling a story so much as recounting a set of shared experiences. That's a
super art house thing to do.
Yeah, that will inevitably be read and understood as a story. And so she didn't necessarily have a narrative point, I think, that she was making, which is totally fair. It's a very art house thing to do. But what the problem that both of our brains run into is that we start trying to ascribe a narrative point to it. And then, so it's just not the best for our hyper analytical brains, which we on a good day struggle to shut off. I appreciate a lot of different creative forms of art, but this one was just not my jam.
Yeah, and I found other reviews that agree with us too. It's a divisive movie the way that most art house realistic like magical realism stuff is. It's for some people and it's not for others. My deep hope is that she felt she told the experiences she wanted to tell. I hope that it was received in the way that she wanted it to be received. I am thrilled to death that, I read one comment from somebody who saw it at TIFF that they hoped that this would kind of kickstart a Haitian movie renaissance. And it probably didn't because of the political instability that then retook them over and then the COVID. It has not currently done that, but it's an excellent reminder that there are, I guess, in a certain way, like, people are people in Haiti too. Like, just like there's probably a bunch of people in Haiti who illegally download the Avengers and, like, love Avengers movies. There's people that love art house stuff too, and these are the kind of stories they want to tell. So it's a great reminder that Haitians create art, that they tell their own stories. I really appreciated the way that it was, as we've already said, lived in, and their own stories and their own experiences. Fantastic. I will never watch this again.
Yeah. I think I did, even though I didn't necessarily enjoy myself at the end, I did feel kind of hopeful that, we have struggled this whole time we've been talking about Haiti to find Haitian Haitian-made art.
Yeah.
For a lot of reasons. It's difficult. But yeah, I mean, I hope she told the story she wanted to tell and she felt good about it. Not, art isn't always about making it just so that the people who consume it are happy about it.
No.
So, yeah, if you love art house, really creative, somewhat non-linear, non-narrative films, this is one for you.
For sure.
Go for it. But I think that's all we have to say about Ayiti Mon Amour. I'm glad we watched it just to have the experience. I don't need to do it again. But what we do need to do again is yet another week of coverage about Haiti. So if you enjoyed this conversation, please do all the YouTube-y things, like and subscribe so you don't miss. We are halfway through our month of Haiti. Next week, we have changed this week around a couple of times. We were going to be talking about colonial legacy. Then we realized we'd been already talking about colonial legacy this entire time. And instead decided to just do a 1 week focus on a particular individual who has maybe had as much an impact on Haiti as the entire colonial legacy, which is their president for life, Francois Papadoc Duvalier. So next week we'll be doing a focus on him specifically, and an episode of a History Channel series that talks about his presidency and his dictatorship, before we bounce back out to a slightly larger topic of looking at the Haitian economy to round out the month. So we hope we see you next in the playlist or next week for what should be a fascinating discussion about Papadoc.
Can't wait, guys. See you then.
Bye.